Welcome back to this series on Taiwanese phonics. Now in this video, I'm going to give you some more information about those tone change rules and how to apply them so you'll know when you should be changing the tone, when you should be keeping the bass tone. And just to say it right up front, there are a lot of these rules. If you actually want to get to that sort of native speaker, really fluent level, you're going to need to know like 20 or 30 of these rules, but I'm just going to give you the sort of most important ones that are going to get you to that sort of 90% correct level, and the rest of them, you're going to pick those up as you're learning, as you're practicing, and as you are studying the language. So the first rule that I'm going to talk about is very simple. For these 4 words, and pretty much only for these 4 words, don't change the tone. You always read these in the original tone, that is the first tone. These are very common words that mean this, that, here, and there. We read them as zhe, he, jia, and hia, and you always keep these in the first tone. So that is a very easy rule to remember. Next up, we've got some more simple words that you're going to use all the time. These words are be, which means want, ki, which means to go, which means again, and le or de, which are kind of 2 pronunciations of the same word. It's kind of a continuous tense marker for an ongoing action. So for these words, we're mostly going to read them all in the first tone. Now, I know that this is a 4th tone, this is a 3rd tone, but if you look at that tone change chart that we showed in the last video and you apply the rule twice, you're going to see that all of these end up in the first tone. So these ones actually have what's called a double sandy. You have to apply the tone change rules twice to read these words. And again, we're going to read them usually in the first tone. So we've got be, ki, ge, le, and de. Next up, we have the rule which says that you keep the bass tone before a neutral tone. Now, we didn't talk about the neutral tones exactly yet. You'll often see them in writing with this sort of dash and a dot after it, or maybe with 2 dashes. What that means is that the following tone is a neutral tone and the prior tone is a bass tone. So I'm going to keep this in the first tone, in the 7th tone, in the first tone, and so on. Now there's 2 different kinds of neutral tones. The first one is sort of a low falling tone. It's kind of like very similar to a 3rd tone. That's for most of the time, like these 2 up here. Now for A, which is a very common word in Taiwanese, the neutral version of A is to use the same tone as the bass tone for the word before it. So let me show you what I mean. So again, for these 2, we're going to drop the neutral tone down into a sort of low 3rd tone, and we'll keep the first syllable in the original bass tone. So here we've got thia̤, which means to have heard something. Gui is the past tense participle. thia̤. And here we've got phīⁿ, and phīⁿ means to smell something. Remember, phīⁿ means nose, and in this case it means to smell. So we've dropped the gui and the di down into that neutral 3rd tone level. And here for the A sounds, we're going to keep the A at the same tone as the word in front. So here I've got chho, which means thick, and this neutral tone is going to be read like this, chho, which is an adjective marker. So I'm saying that it is something that is thick. Chho. Next up, we've got a 7th tone, and again, I'm going to read the A here in the same tone. So doa means big, and doai means something that is big. Next up, we've got a 3rd tone here, so that is se, and it means small, and here I'm going to read the A in the same tone, so I'll have se, and that's going to mean something that is small. So let's review these one more time. thia̤, phīⁿ, chho, doai, se. All right, so that is our rule to keep the bass tone before a neutral tone. And remember, those neutral tones are often, but not always, marked with either a hyphen and a dot or a double hyphen. Next up, I have just some more practice words here. And I just want to point out that when we change those tones, except for the last syllable, what that actually means, Usually it means at the end of a sentence, we're going to keep the base tone, but it also means that within a sentence, at the end of a clause or a complete idea, we're going to keep the base tone. So within each clause, within each phrase, within each sentence, we're going to change all of the tones up until the last one, which will stay the same. We also apply this rule to nouns, to any noun. So if it's a single syllable noun, it's going to be read in the base tone because there's only one syllable. If it's a multi-syllable noun, we're going to change all the tones up until the last one, which will stay in the base tone. So here's just some more practice words. And I like to find these kind of words where we can get two words with these syllables swapped. And this is really good for hearing the difference between the tones and how those tones change. So here we've got a seventh tone. It's going to change to a third tone. And I won't read through all of them like that. You can refer back to that chart to see how these tones are changing. I'll just read through the words and tell you what they mean. So here we've got gōa-kok, which means a foreign country. And here we've got kok-gōa, which means overseas or outside of the country. So gōa-kok, kok-gōa. And that's a really good way to hear how those two tones change. Here we've got chhit-pah. Now, if you remember from the very first video, it was our very first word, pah. It means 100, and chhit here means 7. So we've got 700, chhit-pah. And swap it around, we get pah-chhit. Pah-chhit means 170. And here we've got bin tui, which means to be facing something or to face, for example, a situation, bin tui. And if we swap them around, then we get tui bin, which means to be across from something, like across the street. It is on the tui bin. So I'll just read through these examples one more time. Gōa-kok, kok-gōa, chhit-pah, pah-chhit, bin tui, tui bin. All right, so that was it for the basic rules on when to apply those tone changes. So we've got a rule that says for some of those basic words like this, that, here, there, to, want, to, go, and so on that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we're going to read those mostly always in the first tone, which means we're either not going to change the tone or we're going to change it twice. Anyway, they all end up in the first tone. And then our general rule is that we're going to change all the tones except for the last syllable in a sentence, a phrase, a clause, a complete idea, a noun. So even for a single syllable noun, we're going to keep the base tone there. And before a neutral tone, we're also going to keep the base tone. So if you just follow those rules, you're going to get to probably 80-85% correct in your tone changes. Now in the next video, which is going to be the last video in this series, I'm going to give you one extra tone change pattern. It's common enough that I think it's worth doing a separate video on, and that is going to get you up to that sort of 90% level. And then for the rest, you're going to have to just work on that on your own, but I promise you it is definitely a lot of fun. And I hope you've enjoyed these videos so far. I hope you'll go down there. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the bell icon. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. And I'm always looking for suggestions, for feedback for future videos. So I hope you enjoyed the series, and I hope you'll stay tuned. See you in the next one. Cảm ơn Taigi.